Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. Well, the end of the week is approaching. The weekend is almost in sight. By the time I get this video edited and uploaded, it may very well just be the weekend at that point. But we've got a really fun video for you guys today. And first up, we've got another piece of viewer mail. This time from really good friend of the channel, Eli. Now, Eli has been around since the very beginning of the Cassette Phase, or pretty close, and always has great things to share in the comments section. So we'll open up the always appreciated and the always cherished viewer mail and see what we've got. And I'm really excited because I feel like he and I have pretty similar tastes when it comes to our nostalgia. And for our main topic today, we are going to dive into the world of vintage action figure playsets. And this is a subject that I've wanted to talk about for a long time. And it's going to transition nicely into kind of a minor project announcement for the den here, which we will talk about. And we can't forget about our cassette of the day. So you all know the drill. It's going to be a fun, relaxing, nostalgic time in here today. And as always, I really appreciate you all joining me. Sound like fun to you? Come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman and welcome to another great day here in the den. Today we've got some Brady Bunch going on the old CRT. Love that show. And before we get into our viewer mail and our topic for today's video, we're going to do our cassette of the day. And maybe you can consider this to be a little bit of foreshadowing. I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. But today we're going to look at a 1984 film, which is in no way, shape, or form a classic, but still one that I enjoy nonetheless. From the galaxy far, far away, we've got the Ewok Adventure. Now this one and the other one, Caravan of Courage, I believe it's called, these are not great films by any stretch of the imagination, but this came out in 1984, and I think people were just happy to have more Star Wars, because the original trilogy had ended. It was still at the peak of its popularity at that point, I have to imagine. And so they gave us, a couple little Ewok movies to kind of get us by. I just love the look of this tape. And I've always operated under the assumption that the first Star Wars movie that I ever saw was Return of the Jedi, and I do still think that that's the case. But I have just a really fuzzy and vague memory of watching Star Wars, just quote unquote. I watched Star Wars one night on television, sitting on the carpet in front of our old CRT. And I had to have been 3-4 years old. I'm talking one of the earliest memories ever. And the reason I remember it is because I got nightmares from it. And I always assumed that it was from the Rancor scene in Return of the Jedi. But now I'm not so sure, because I go back and watch this and I get little flashes, little memories of the scenes in this film, and the production value wasn't as good, and the effects weren't nearly as good, and so now I'm trying to think, maybe was this the first Star Wars that I ever saw? Bits and pieces of it on cable television, or actually it would have been probably on network TV. So what I need to do is try to track down, go back and see when this aired on one of the 3 main network stations at the time, and I bet from there I could probably, doing some sleuth work there and some investigative reporting, I could figure out when and try to pinpoint my first exposure to Star Wars, because I am a big fan of it, as you guys know. The tattoo that I have on my arm is, it's based on the moon image from E.T. with the silhouette of E.T. on the bike. But it's also got a silhouette of the Millennium Falcon flying by, along with a silhouette of Falkor from the Neverending Story, in case anyone was ever wondering. So, yes, I consider myself a pretty big Star Wars fan, not nearly as diehard as some of those that are out there, I'll admit. And for that reason, I always kind of appreciated the Ewoks. You know, I was right in that key demographic. I've talked about it before, the Saturday morning cartoon that came out. that featured the Ewoks. I always enjoyed that, and I loved the theme song to that show. And so that's why I'm happy to have both this, the Ewok Adventure, and the Caravan of Courage on VHS. And you can watch these if you ever want to. I would probably say that unless you're a diehard, they're probably better as background noise or background, ambiance while you're doing other things. But still enjoyable. They're on Disney Plus, so check them out if you want to. But yeah, I just thought that today would be a good day, being that we're talking about vintage action figures and vintage play sets, to give a little love to the old Ewoks here in our cassette of the day. And before we dive into the world of vintage action figure play sets and our little retrospective that we're going to do today, I'm excited to do another viewer mail opening here on the channel. And this one comes from, like I said in the intro, good friend of the channel, Eli. Reached out and said, hey, I've got something, nothing major, that I want to send as kind of a gift to the channel for all the great content that you've been providing us over the past year. So as I replied in that email, that means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. I do this as a fun hobby to connect with like-minded people, and I've definitely found myself doing that quite a bit, and Eli is no exception. So let me get this opened up and see what we've got. All right, we've got it opened up. Let's see what we've got. All right, so I'm already seeing some cool stuff. I've got a note on the top. Let's see what that says. Perry, keep up the great work, brother. Thanks for all the great content and nostalgia trips, Eli. And thank you for watching, and for all of you. I really appreciate the connections that we've made. Just keep it going. I'm having a lot of fun, so I'm glad that you all are too. So let's see. We've got some retro vintage goodness in here. Oh, this is cool. Eli knows that I love PVCs. When I did my clean out of the den and put a lot of the toys away, I had to find ways to keep the PVC figures, because I like to fidget with them while I'm working. He gave me the great idea of, stashing these in certain places around your house for fun little, nostalgic reminders, that little surprises throughout your day. And I've actually done a little bit of that. It's been a lot of fun. So this is cool. This, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, that's the earliest version of Mickey Mouse that I can remember. I think Fantasia was a big thing coming out, when we were younger, and just an iconic version of an iconic character. And I did not have this one, so thank you. That's going to go great in the collection. Let's see what we've got here. We've got a hat. You guys know I'm a sucker for hats, and this looks like a really cool vintage one right here. Check this out. I can tell this is vintage, probably mid-90s Chicago Bulls. You can tell by a few different ways here. You've got the, well, first of all, you got the Logo 7 embroidery there. Logo 7 was a great brand back in the day. You can tell by the graphic as well, and then the green under visor is usually a pretty good indicator. This is awesome. This is in great shape too. And you guys know I love basketball. I did a whole video on it, and how much the 1990s Chicago Bulls were an influence on me, and Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant and all the guys. That's immediately what I think of when I see this hat. So incredible, very cool. Thank you. Let's keep moving here. Oh man, I can tell what this is. You guys can too. I'm gonna have to put you down for just a minute to get the bubble wrap off. Look at this beauty right here. Now that is early 90s edition of the Cherry Coke can. Wow, and you knew I was looking for one of these. I just had never really quite found the right deal to pull the trigger, but now I have one, and this is gonna go great. Anyone who watched the channel knows that I love old vintage soda cans. It's just nothing more nostalgic, It's just one of those things that just takes me back every time I see these logos and these colors. And the Cherry Coke can from the 80s, the one with the red and the white kind of gradient pattern stripes, was always one of my favorites, but I think this might be tops as far as my favorite design, nostalgic design of that great Cherry Coke beverage. Oh man, you did not have to do that. I really appreciate that. So in the last week, I've gotten a Surge can from my friend Dante, and now I've got the early 90s Cherry Coke can. Super excited. Awesome, awesome, awesome. let's keep going here. Oh man, we got some, check these out. We got some muscle figures. You know, I don't have a lot of gaps and blind spots in my vintage collection, but this is one of them. I don't have a lot of muscle figures. In fact, I don't know if I have any. Maybe a couple that Joe sent me or somebody sent me a little while back, but not many at all. And I just think these things are so cool. And as I mentioned with the PVC figure, these are perfect little things that I can fidget with as I'm going throughout my work day. You know, there's no articulation on them. You don't have to worry about posing them back on the shelf. You can just, you know, play with them, knock them around, tip them over, whatever. And that's what's definitely going to happen with these. And this may have, you know, started a new little collection, because the more of these you have, the better. Awesome, very cool. All right, let's see what's next. Now we've got a Genesis game here. Oh, nice. And one that I did not have. And you're probably thinking, how do you not have Street Fighter or Street Fighter 2 on Sega Genesis? It's just one that I hadn't gotten yet. One of the best 16-bit games ever, right? Certainly for fighting games, but for any games really. The music, the characters, love Street Fighter 2, and this is Super Street Fighter 2 for the Sega Genesis, which may be one of the best versions of this game ever made. Oh man, we're gonna do some great fighting games over on the CRT with this one here. Awesome, thank you. All right, let's see what's next. Oh, cool. So you guys know that I like these old R.L. Stine novels from the 90s. And look, this one's even got the Scholastic logo on it. So we've got the Babysitter 3. And I should know this, but I can't think off the top of my head right here on the spot, but I know I might have the Babysitter 1 or maybe part 2. I think I have one of the ones in this series, but now I have 3. And these stories are so cool. These are quick reads. I've talked about it before. You can get through these in just a matter of hours. And just the way they're written, you know, the way they paint the pictures and the settings that it takes you and transports you back to, just like little time capsules. These little paperbacks here, I love them. Each time I go to sit down and read one of these, I always have a good time. So thanks, Eli. That one will get read for sure. Moving right along here, we've got... Oh, check that out. Oh man, that actually has my name on it. Are you guys seeing that? Yes, so sorry I had to pause for a second because my eyes aren't so good and I had to get that under the light so I could see, but it does. It says Perry the Persuader, and it's like a Garbage Pail Kids style card. Where on earth did you find this? It's amazing. Leaf Incorporated. Collect all stickers. Okay. I'm not sure exactly what this is even from, but I love the artwork. And it's just incredible. And the fact that it's got my name on it, even better. Wow, what a cool, unique gift. I was not expecting that at all. You know, how often do you see your name, especially when you got an uncommon name like me? You know, how many Perrys do you know? Well, here you go. You've got Perry the Persuader to go along with Perry from the Cassette Phase. That is just amazing. Let's see what we've got here. Looks like some pencils. Yep. Let's take a closer look here. Okay, so right off the bat, I can tell. So this one here, this Houston Oilers, I've talked about on the channel before how I collected these NFL pencils when I was a kid, and I've got a good assortment over there on the shelf, but I don't think I had the Houston Oilers, which is really cool. Being in Texas, we miss having the Oilers. You know, the Houston Texans, it's just not quite the same. And then we've got a couple of basketball ones mixed in here too, and these are all Texas teams, so you know, it's the details. Eli has definitely been paying attention. Got the San Antonio Spurs, circa the David Robinson years. And then we've got the Houston Rockets back in the days of Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon and Vernon Maxwell and Robert Horry and all the guys. These are awesome. Thank you so much. I love them. All right, let's keep it moving. And it looks like we've got to the bottom of the box. This has already been so generous, so unnecessary, but we've got a Walt Disney Chip and Dale comic book for the collection. And this is in great shape because I know that these are older. You know, these predate us as 80s kids. 40 cents. Yeah, given its age, that's in really good condition. And these are really fun to read. You know, the stories are usually pretty simple, just quick little adventures. But every time I read something like this or anything from the Scrooge McDuck or the Donald Duck, I can just see how it influenced some of those cartoons that we watched in the late 80s and early 90s. You know, the Rescue Rangers and the DuckTales. You can kind of see where they were rooted in some of these stories from the comic books. So, what a haul. Man, you went above and beyond. You guys always do. Anybody that sends me anything, it's just you know, mind-blowing. You know, and it makes me realize that y'all are listening to the stuff that interests me and that you appreciate what we talk about here on the channel and the memories that we share, and just love it. These are all going to have a really, really special place in the collection. So thanks, Eli. Really, really, really appreciate it. So as you all know, I'm a big fan of our friend Jason Knupp's channel, The New 80s Revolution. And he's got quite the project going on currently over in the cave. And he's actually almost done with it, I think. And it involves action figures and play sets and vintage toys set up in diorama-style displays. And for those of you who have been around for a little while, you know that I used to have quite a few vintage toys and action figures on display here in the den. But over the past few months, I've had some different priorities for my space here. You know, the feel that I'm going for is more closely related to vintage home decor and books and physical media as opposed to toys. But that doesn't mean that I don't still have a love for vintage toys and action figures and play sets. I mean, there really is nothing more nostalgic. And I love the den in its current state, don't get me wrong. But watching some of Jason's most recent videos has kind of reignited my interest in having just a little bit of a presence of a vintage toy display here in the den at some point. But more on that later. So be sure to stick around until the end of the video because I'll talk in detail about my plans for this next little project. And it's a project that I'm definitely going to include you all on. But before we do that, I want to take you all back. And not just a few years, but back to our childhood bedrooms and our basements and our backyards. To a time when imagination was king and a simple piece of molded plastic could become an entire universe. Because today, as I've mentioned, we're diving deep into the magical, battle-scarred, laser-blasting world of 80s vintage action figure playsets. And this isn't just about toys. You guys know that. This is about moments and memories and the stories that we told before we really even knew what storytelling was. So let's begin with what can only be considered to be an icon, and that's Castle Grayskull.
What do we have here?
It's Castle Grayskull.
And it's mine.
Not so fast, Beastman.
He-Man!
You can pit He-Man against Beastman, playing for the power of Castle Grayskull. You have to put the castle together.
Beastman's escaping.
The throne, Dad. Dad, you saved the castle.
Castle Grayskull from the Masters of the Universe collection. He-Man and Beastman, each sold separately.
Released in 1982, this green-hued, haunting fortress was more than just a backdrop for He-Man and Skeletor's eternal struggles, but for many of us, it was a mystery. What secrets lay inside? Why did it have a mouth? The drawbridge lowered not just into a castle, but into another world. We fought wars there, plotted schemes, and saved Eternia countless times, all before dinner. Now, if Grayskull was a symbol of fantasy, then the USS Flag was the crown jewel of military might.
I got it! Wow!
Introducing the G.I. Joe USS Flag aircraft carrier. Imagine being on the deck of this aircraft carrier.
The USS Flag is fantastic! It's so big! All right, man, launch station! Get ready to launch aircraft! Where's the Admiral? Not here!
G.I. Joe!
Fire! Beast on Cobra! Yeah!
G.I. Joe USS Flag aircraft carrier comes with what you see here, other figures and equipment.
And at 7.5 feet long, it was more than just a playset. It was like a monument. You know, it took up entire rooms. And it required assembly skills that most 8-year-olds did not have at the time. And if you were lucky enough to own one, you were basically considered royalty in your neighborhood. No, the Flag wasn't just a toy. It was like an aircraft carrier that launched dreams. And moving right along here, let's talk about the Ghostbusters Firehouse, which came out in 1986.
It's the real Ghostbusters Firehouse playset.
Venkman, our firehouse is haunted. No way. Oh no! I've been gooped. Ghosts at the stadium.
The real Ghostbusters, each sold separately, assembly required.
Hey buddy, see anything weird? It's Tombstone Tackle. Don't lose your head. Take a hike. There's a policeman. Oh no! It's X-Top. I can't believe my eyes. Whoa! We're not scared.
With this playset, you could trap ghosts, dump slime through the grates, and hear echoes of "Who you gonna call?" every time you swung those doors open. And it wasn't just plastic, it was personality. It had charm, and a whole lot of ectoplasm. Now, of course, we all know that Star Wars brought the galaxy home. It brought it to our bedrooms and to our backyards. And the Ewok village, that was where nature met sci-fi.
It's Ewok Village. I must save my friends.
Let's set. I'll get him.
Dear me, what a close call.
It's C-3PO, new low-gray and Ewok Village playset. Action figures, each sold separately. You have to put it together.
I'm Low Gravy, Ewok Medicine Man. Take me to your leader. Your throne, O Golden King, will celebrate with special stew, a barbecue. No celebration for me until my friends are free. Very well, Your Majesty.
Ewok Village playset from Star Wars Return of the Jedi collection. Action figures sold separately. New from Kenner.
I mean, rope bridges and tree houses and those little levers that would launch logs at stormtroopers. It was clever. It was tactile, you know, and it lets you relive Return of the Jedi in your own hands. And then there was the Death Star playset. Did anyone have that one?
Here's the new Star Wars Death Star space station that you put together. Action figures each sold separately.
Darth Vader's firing a laser cannon. It's been hit. He's after Luke. Take the elevator. Hurry! Now cross the light bridge. You won't escape me. Jump, Luke. Oh no, the trash compactor. There's a trash monster. The wall's closing. Save!
Kenner's new Star Wars Death Star space station. Action figures each sold separately.
And that trash compactor with the foam garbage and the bendy monster, just classic. And we learned about peril, and we learned that even in plastic form, we had to get the timing just right if we wanted to save Luke and Leia. Then came the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sewer lair.
The foot are about to ambush the turtles' sewer playset. But thanks to the turtles' periscope, it's no surprise.
Take cover!
The foot are attacking with their sewer ball. Watch out, turtles, or you'll wind up in the recovery room. Oh no, retro mutagen news. The Shredder's up to his old tricks. And speaking of going up, the turtles are taking the elevator to street level to make a call on Shredder using their private line. Reach out and crush someone. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Playmate.
Now, many of these playsets I did not actually own as a kid. You know, I played with them at friends' houses or I remembered them from the commercials, but this is one that we actually had. And in 1989, we all suddenly wanted to live underground with pizza near radioactive ooze. And I know that the Technodrome is another awesome playset, but for whatever reason, I always preferred the sewer lair. I don't know, this playset, it just felt gritty and fun at the same time. Hidden doors and periscopes and zip lines. This was more than just a base. This was a playground for 4 radical turtles and us. Now, we can't forget about the Thundercats and Cat's Lair with its light up eyes and its roaring action. I mean, come on, that thing was intimidating before you even turned it on.
Thundercat Cat Flare. Will Cat Flare's electronic laser beam destroy the mutant vehicle? Direct laser hits. Cat Flare's doors are blown open.
Get him! Fire! Retreat!
Cat Flare defeats the mutant vehicle. Cat Flare, complete with mutant vehicle figures sold separately from L.
And this was the type of playset that made you feel like you were in charge of something ancient and powerful. And when paired with Mum-Ra's Tomb Fortress, the battles practically wrote themselves. And I know that I'm just scratching the surface with some of these. There were just so many amazing playsets from the golden age of action figures. Things like Masks, Boulder Hill, the Dungeons and Dragons Fortress of Fangs, the Sectar's Hive, just awesome, awesome stuff. But why did we love these so much as kids? Because they weren't just toys, right? They were stages in a way, where our young minds wrote epics. They helped us learn about heroes and about villains, and about consequences and second chances. And they gave us control in a world where we really didn't have much yet. And maybe when you see these things now, they remind you that adventure didn't always need graphics and screens, just our hands and maybe a few sound effects. And thinking about some of those sounds, the clack of a drawbridge, the snap of a missile, or the satisfying click that you got when a trap had been set. And most importantly, our own voices, shouting out attacks and yelling retreat and laughing and narrating. And we didn't realize it at the time, but we were already world builders. Now, some of us still have these playsets in basements, in attics, in boxes, in shelves behind glass. But even if we don't, we still carry them in the ways that we reminisce, in how we tell stories, and in the friendships that we made sitting cross-legged on the floor. Because toys break, and stickers peel and fade, and plastic warps, but memories don't. And as you guys know, that's what we're all about here. So here's to the playsets, to those afternoons that turned into evenings, and the scratched up floors and the missing pieces and the endless reboots of the same battles, and to all of that magic that we held in our hands. Okay guys, welcome back one more time to the Ottoman here in the den, where I want to talk to you a little bit about an upcoming project, the most recent project for the den. And I hope that you all enjoyed our little, probably a little bit overly sentimental retrospective on vintage playsets, but I had a really good time talking about that. So I recently acquired a Grail toy that is something that I always wanted since the time I was a kid and never had it. I had a lot of friends who had this particular item, and I would play with it over at their house, and I would see the commercials, and it's kind of an epic playset in my opinion, and one of the best from the 80s. And I finally, thanks to Facebook Marketplace and some creative negotiating that involved some trades, I have one of my possessions. So let's take a quick look at the Ewoks Indoor Village playset, which to my knowledge is complete. I got a few figures here that I'm going to put with this, but as I mentioned in the intro, talking a little bit, or watching Jason Nupp talk about having action figures out on display that he can grab and feel and play with and just enjoy. It got me really thinking. I miss having that some of that here in the den, and I was thinking about a way to incorporate something that fits within the aesthetic of the room here, but also scratches that itch, And so for that reason, and I'll show you where this is going to go in just a few minutes, but I've already got a spot picked out and kind of what I'm going to do. But what the project part of this is, I'm going to build like a little diorama style display for this. So we're talking about, a base, and I'm still trying to figure out all the artistic parts of this. It might be made out of styrofoam, it might be made out of plywood. Still trying to decide how I'm going to go about that. But I'm either going to put down like some forest looking contact paper as kind of like the base on top of the base, and then cover it with like some peat moss and some pebbles and some, you can go to the craft stores and get like, little faux plants and trees and shrubbery, and I'm going to work that all in. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put, I don't know if I'm going to get a poster or maybe do like a large printout to put behind this that shows, you know, the tall trees and some of the backdrop that you might find on indoor. And this is gonna take a while, but I think it's gonna be a fun project. You know, luckily, you know, my wife, she's pretty crafty, and so she can really help with some of this stuff, and she's actually kind of excited about helping me, so I'm lucky there. But yeah, and that will give me something to do while I continue to get the figures that go with it, because I only have a little bit of a start here. You know, we've got some Commandos, a couple of Ewoks, and we got Princess Leia in her indoor gear. There are several other figures that I need to get that would fit in nicely here on indoor. And just some other ideas that I have from looking around online and watching other YouTube videos. I'm gonna get a little LED flickering candle for that fire pit. I may even like string some little LED lanterns around the top of these trees, so that way it gives like a really nice glow at night. Maybe something underneath, maybe some kind of like imitation water feature that goes underneath here. You know, leaves, like I mentioned, plants and shrubs and all those types of things are gonna surround this and really make it a centerpiece here in the room. Again, this is not gonna be an overnight thing. It's gonna take some time, but I'm really excited about it. And one thing that I like about play sets in general, but this one especially, are all the little nooks and crannies and things that you can do with your action figures. There's just all kinds of little places to explore. And you know, of course, these looked bigger when we were kids, but the idea is still the same, and the excitement is still there, just, you know, in a different way these days as an adult, as I'm sure you can understand. But that's going to be the project. Let me put you down for a minute, and I'll show you where this is going to eventually, where it's going to live here in the den. Okay, so just to kind of get you your bearings, I'm on the other side of the ottoman here. CRT's over there, desk is there. So my plan is, if I can fit it on this little end table where I currently hold my my little boombox shelf system, I'm gonna put it there. Now, if that's not big enough for me to do what I want to do, I've got a few other 80s wooden end tables that I'm watching on Marketplace that I could put in its place to get a little bit more depth out of it. So that means that this is going to move, but I'll tell you where in just a second. The Cubs poster or the Cubs pennant is going to move so that I can have room for the Planet Indoor backdrop that's going to go behind there. And it's not going to be a big deal. All I'm really going to do is rearrange a little bit of shelf usage over here. Maybe some VHS tapes down there. Some of those clamshells will move to a bin in the closet or someplace else. And then, you know, swap out some of the DVDs and just do a little bit of rearranging so that I can put the stereo in one of those shelves there. I think it'll fit in this one. Hopefully it's deep enough. It's going to take some finagling, I think, but I still want to be able to listen to this guy with all my CDs and all my tapes, as you all know. So I'll find another spot for that, and this is where the indoor village is going to go. Now, I may have to move this plant to the other side of the credenza over here, which wouldn't be a big deal. Or we might decide that it looks good there with all the other foliage that's around. But yeah, I'm super excited. You know, it may be a case where it's like we can work it into our holiday content. You know, I'm thinking like, would the indoor village look cool with Christmas lights on it? Would it look cool, you know, decorated up for Halloween? I just have all kinds of ideas in my head, and I think the look of this particular playset, being that it's brown and tan and kind of unassuming looking, as opposed to some of the other awesome epic playsets that are more brightly colored that I talked about, it's going to look good in here, and I don't think it's going to jump out as something super out of place. You know, I think it's going to blend in with the surroundings, so to speak, and I'm excited about that. And like I said, this was always my favorite playset, and I'm so happy to finally own one. I feel like it needs a good, dedicated place to shine. So that'll be the plan. And there we are. So I hope that you all enjoyed our sentimental little retrospective on vintage action figure playsets. And if you did, consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax, enjoy life, and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.